Hello, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good day. It is week 45 of Signed Comics, and we're still in the X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men. And we are still part of the Mutant Mask. Remember, we ended last week with issue day 304 X-Men, or Uncanny X-Men 211, signed by Chris Claremont. We now go to uh, day 305, uh, issue 212 of the Mutant Massacre. This is round one of Wolverine versus Sabretooth. And this is, uh, I just, again, Rick Leonardi did great pencils. At the time when I was a kid, I didn't really care so much for Rick Leonardi, but looking back right now, I really do appreciate his work more. So I'm very happy to have him. Also, it's what's nice because I really like this Mutant Massacre story. This is where it really got things going for me with the X-Men, with them being really such a cool team. They're like, holy crow! I mean, at this point, as a kid, I'm used to. Uh, I'm not. I hadn't read anything where a bunch of people get killed, whether people at Omar or whatnot. So having like where a bunch of mutants are literally being killed, and the X-Men are scrambling to protect the Morlocks from the Marauders. Uh, Very compelling for me as a kid. So having this issue signed, then issue 312, I'm sorry, 313 signed by Chris Claremont, which Alan Davis, great storytelling, great artist, and just how he pulls it all out. No, one thing also was this was also Betsy Braddock's. Uh, this is where she becomes a member of the team. And if you weren't paying attention, it's like, oh, is this where did she just all of a sudden show up and she's a part of the team now? No, she actually made her American debut in New Mutants Annual number 3. It's where she made her American debut. I say that because uh, Alan Davis and Chris Claremont did a Captain Britain comic book that was only available in the UK, and that's where they first introduced her and Megan, and all the lore behind Excalibur came from from that series that Alan Davis and Chris Claremont did. But her first debut was with New Mutants Annual number 3, and then she makes like a one panel appearance in issue 210 of the X-Men. So here at this point, we've already know that she's established that being a telepath. But here, where she's able to take on and survive Sabretooth, she proves herself that she's now a member of the team. It's kind of at this point, it's kind of one of those deals where also they're like, well, they're the X-Men. They always have to have a telepath on the team. I mean, it's almost that was the one thing about the X-Men in general. Later on in years, it's one of those where it got to be too much. It's one of those where it's like each team had to have a telepath, which got to be redundant for me. So, but this was Betsy Braddock, and I prefer this version of Betsy Braddock to the Asian assassin version of Betsy Braddock. Uh, it just doesn't make any sense that she goes from. I know how they explain it, but for me, it was like just didn't make any sense. She goes from a British girl who with telepathic abilities and wears armor to being a telekinetic assassin with using having this like psychic dagger that comes out of her fist. That just it just didn't make any sense to me as a kid. And still now it's one of those she's really for me she's always just been like a uh, she's window dressing. She's I mean she's like they always have her dressed in a sexy provocative outfit and whatnot. So for me it's kind of like I don't know. I just never really cared for her. A lot of people like her. I just never really cared for Betsy Braddock as the Asian assassin. So I always preferred this version of her with her lavender hair and her pink and lavender costume. So, but then we go from there. Now soon after, then we go to issue 214, with Bob Wick doing the inks over Barry Windsor Smith, and of course, having the opportunity to have Bob sign it, had him sign it. This is also, again, issue two, and that's again. I always remind you guys. For me, the X Men started with issue 204. So Cyclops wasn't part of the team. Uh, at this point, for me, I'm being introduced to Dazzler for the first time. Really, I knew about her from as a comic book in the spinner racks, but this is where I'm really getting for the first time being introduced to her, and I'm like, wow, 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 this is a cool character. And so it's one of those deals where it's almost like with the X Men. For me, it was like out with the old, in with the new. They're completely changing the status quo of the X Men, if you will. So I really enjoyed this era where they're moving characters and creating a whole new team of X Men from the with new characters and old characters. Because then we go to issue 224, which is day 208, and the X Men are in San Francisco. Havoc is now part of the team, and Havoc is one of those characters where I only knew Havoc from the Marvel Handbook. So for me, so I'd read about him, knew that he was an X Men. He had been in the X Men with mutant powers, but I had never had yet to learn anything about him. So having him, like, okay, so you're replacing one, I guess, being a Cyclops having like energy powers to another person with energy powers. Even though it's slightly, like, you could say it's like how Dazzler was getting closer to the point where she was really focusing her abilities to be able to do like energy blasts from her hands instead of just like a dazzling light show, if you will. Because again, I this is my first this was my first introduction to Dazzler. And again, what I liked about Dazzler was one of those where it's like she became an X-Men out of circumstance. She wasn't really a fighter, wasn't really a soldier, if you will. And they make it known with how they drew Dazzler, how she was like, ew, I don't really want to be doing this stuff. I want to go back to my normal life. I mean, she likes the creature comforts. And she's being robbed of those creature comforts by being in the X-Men. So I really like that. But so issue 224, the highlight is Havoc and Longshot on the cover. They're actually in San Francisco, but at the same time, also, what's going on in the story is the villainous adversary is not necessarily being debuted, but he's being made known. So this issue actually becomes like a setup for Fall of the Mutants, where, as we all know what happens with that, but where the X Men have to kind of sacrifice themselves at the end with right at the again they right part of the main thing about the Fall of the Mutants was to get Storm her powers back. So, but no, again, the X Men at this point are kind of a roaming band of characters, if you will. They don't really have a home because at this point the mansion's been blown up, so they don't have a home. Their home is kind of like the whatever airplane hangar they're in, hiding the Blackbird jet. That's where their home is, and you can tell how so there's like they really are. They're kind of not necessarily rudderless, but they they're trying to just the X Men are under attack, under threat because of the uh, Marauders, and they're just basically just like circling the wagons at this point, gathering their forces, getting people to be safe, and so and again I like that where it's like you can tell how the X Men are at the point where they're kind of lost, not only lost as who they are, but they're just trying to gather their forces before they can strike back. And then we go to 251 or 250. What issue was that? 253 or in day 209 with Steve Leola signed it. And this is again X-Men are there's the X-Men have been spread to the winds. Wolverine and Jubilee are in the outback trying to escape the Reavers. Uh, Polaris has been debuted for me for the first time, really, and she's in here. She's uh, her powers have mutated. She no longer has her mutant magnetic abilities. Now has her. Uh, she's now super strong, and her body mass is changed because of it. And she's also being possessed by malice. So she's being so Banshee's going after her to rescue her. Uh, and then it just again it was the team was all over the place, and you're like, what's going to happen next? Which leads you to the next issue, day 210, issue 254, and this is Mariah McTaggart needs to create her own team of X-Men to deal with the Reavers attacking uh, the island. And again, this is like she's just like, whatever mutants are there, you're now part of the X-Men. And that's really you're now part of the X-Men because of how the cover was done. I'm like, oh, is this a brand new team? And so for me, it was like, oh, this is cool. This is going to be a brand new version of the X-Men because all the other X-Men are spread to the four corners of the earth. And so I was really hoping that this would be the team with Forge, Banshee. Even though Amanda Sefton was a witch, have her on the team. Uh, Same thing with Tom Corsi and Sharon Freelander. They were the humans that were transformed into American Indians because of the spirit there. So I kind of looked at them, whereas like because they were transformed into American Indians, they weren't mutants, but they were, for me, mutant adjacent, if you will. They have been changed, and so they would suffer the same ridicule as a regular mutant person was. And I just, again, I like the person. I always like when you have introducing old characters, almost like brand new characters. So I was really hoping that we were going to get more with Tom and Sharon, especially when uh, they had in preparation of fighting for the battle. Sharon has them all get into the X-Men uniform. I never considered the I know that like the black and yellow, a lot of people consider it the a uniform, a costume. I always looked at more as like a uniform. And if you are wearing that black and yellow, that means you're wearing a uniform. So that's how I always looked at it. Because it's one of those like, why? Because in the military, all military soldiers have the exact same uniform, exact same clothes. And that's how the mutants are. If you're on the X-Men or an X-Men adjacent, you would have the same outfit on, which always made the X-Men different from like the Defenders or the Avengers or whatnot, because they wore a uniform, they didn't wear costumes. So, and I always, as I said, I love this, especially the cover with Sunder and Legion, along with America Sefton, Moriah, and uh, uh, Banshee. I just thought it was such a cool outfit. And I was like, oh, will this be the new like X-Men team that the public knows, while the other X-Men are scattered about, and they've kind of, because we see that a lot of times in where it's like, oh, well, this character's stuck over here. We're going to leave them here for a while. We'll come back to them. Kind of like put them on the shelf and let them take a rest. So I was hoping that was what we're going to do. Obviously not, because it only lasted 2 issues, but still liked it the most. But more importantly, after this story arc, okay, or two issue story, you get to see like Sean Cassidy is now having the yellow and black costume. Forge is in that yellow, so it's one of those where it's like they're becoming X-Men even though they're not officially part of a team, because by and large there is no X-Men team. So, and that of course leads us into the last day of the week, day 310, which is the X-Men XXL Jim Lee book. And the reason why I put it here with the Uncanny X-Men, as opposed, even though it's not called the Uncanny X-Men, is because this book, this big book, was made from a bunch of Uncanny X-Men issues, and I had it signed by Chris Claremont. So by having Chris Claremont sign it, in essence, in my brain, it's like, well, he's signing all of the issues. So plus also it's just a nice big book, so it's a nice big book to have. So, but no, that's the X-Men for you in a nutshell. The Uncanny X-Men. Um, I'm in, we did now. We're going to have uh, next week. We have V for DC, and we have W for DC. The reason why we only have V's for DC is because I don't have anything from Marvel and anything from the independent press with the V. So we go to the W's. Then after the W's, we'll be going to the X's. The X's are going to be very, very big. I've got to go through and I'm going to have to plan it out because the way it goes X and then it goes Y. After Y, we are done. So I've actually got to go in and I got to actually plan it out in reverse. So what I'm going to do is so I'm going to make a photocopy of the calendar. Okay, these are my Y's from 31st of December, from the 30th to the 29th, all the way to the Y's, and then the X's. So from basically mid-November through mid-December, which is almost a 4-week period, we're going to have nothing but X's. So we're going to have, and I do. You're going to have a lot of X-Men. You're going to have a lot of X-Factor. We're going to have a lot of X-Force. We have independent press. We're going to have X and Exo Man of War. And I don't think I'll have to take another look. I don't think I have any DCX. I'll have to take another look, but I don't think so. I think with the X's, I think with DC it ends with Young Justice. So we're not going to have any X's to show you guys for DC. So for the rest of the year, pretty much, we're pretty much going to have after we get done with the W's, we're going to have nothing but X. So nothing but mutants. And I've got some nice ones. To show you. So I hope uh, you will stay tuned to the video. Hope you'll to the videos. Hope you'll stay tuned to my postings on X. Um, One thing also to keep in mind with that is I found it humorous. I was like, I was expecting this. I'm a huge fan of that issue 254, the Mariah Island X-Men, but it got almost no likes on Twitter, which I was almost expecting that for nobody to like it because, like I said, and that's signed by Chris Claremont, but because why? Because I was the only because Dan Green is sadly no longer with us. I've never met Mark Silvestri at a con, so for me it was one of those where it's like having Chris sign that issue might be one of the few people that I can get to sign that. So that's the reason why I had him sign it. So, but guys, you're going to have a great day. I'm having a great day. The Washington Redskins are beating up on the. No, I'm sorry. It's tied right now as I speak. It is tied. The Redskins are playing the Dolphins in Madrid, and it's a tied game. So I'm sure you guys were probably hearing all the hooting and hollering in the background where I wasn't because I was focused on this and focused on you guys. So it's one nice thing about uh, doing the video and having all the background noise. It really helps me focus. That's one of the reasons why I love I love coming in here on Friday nights when there's a big crowd, the DJ's going, and I'm just zeroed in to what I'm working on, and everything's all white noise. In fact, there's a couple times. In fact, lady over there, Amber, she once told me how there's a couple times on a Friday night, people come up to me and will try to talk to me about what I'm doing, but I'm so zoned in, I don't even notice. And then, like, well, I'll take a break, I'll raise my head, and she'll, like, laugh at me, and she'll, like, you had people coming over and talking to you, and I'm like, really? I didn't know. I had no clue. So, but yeah, if I'm ever in a club, in a bar, and band's going hard, or DJ's going hard, and noisy and rowdy, boom, I'm zoomed in, I'm getting all my work done. So, you guys have a great day. I'm having a great day. And as always, guys, take life one dot at a time.